Well, today I am particularly, if I'm allowed to say so, excited and thrilled because this year is the National Year of Reading. And this year I have two wonderful guests to have a discussion with about the core of what we're all about with the Literary Festival. It's about reading, it's about engaging with people, it's about stories, it's about spending time, perhaps a little bit of escapism, but the core is reading. And Read Easy, what I was most attracted by with Read Easy is it really goes to literally the grassroots of finding those and working with those and local communities across our area and ensuring that this magical world that may have been all too shrouded or cut off from those who cannot read or can only read partially. And here through Read Easy, people are encouraged to take that brave step and maybe to start again, and we'll explore who the people are who have difficulty with reading, why that takes place, and I know that there's different elements we can look at. But I'm going to introduce you to Lydia, and she has been associated with Read Easy for how long?
11 years.
11 years. And Marion is here, and Marion is... what is the formal term? One of the coaches, is that right?
It is a coach, yes.
Fantastic. And both, as I say, from this corner of the world, from Gillingham. And of course, the festival itself stretches its reach from Gillingham to beyond Shaftesbury, up to the outskirts of Frome. Mere sits in the centre of the map, but we have a wide reach. So I'm interested to explore with you that local element a little later on. But Lydia, let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about that early history when Read Easy was first founded. Why was it founded? What was the history? And who led that at the very beginning?
Ginny Williams Ellis was the person who founded it. She was in Dorchester. She worked in prison, in Dorchester Prison, coaching prisoners who hadn't themselves really got to learn to read. Prison communities have got quite a large percentage of adults in there who never quite got reading. She decided to set it up as a separate outside prison charity and started the group in Dorchester. The groups then spread. We were probably third or fourth group because we're right in Dorset. We were close to it, and our pioneer setting up our group had been one of the coaches in the Dorchester area.
And this was when that this all took place?
Oh, this would have been 2009.
So really, well, when I hear 2009, I think that was yesterday. So, but it's been running for a good time. But it seems extraordinary in the modern world that there wasn't something that filled that gap. And so you filled somewhere where there was a real need.
In a way, there had been adult education classes for adults who couldn't read, but they were classes. And they didn't account for the fact that the people coming to a class with other people who were there might not feel embarrassed about being there at all and exposing themselves. So the classes really didn't take off in the way that they might have. With Read Easy, it's discreet one-to-one coaching, so you can keep your head down if you don't want the world to know.
Let's explore that a little bit, because I think that's really important. And I completely see that there can be a formal thing of classes where you apply and it's very formalised. So what you're saying really here is there's elements of building relationships and of trust. Can we explore that? I think it's so vital. I know around the time when Read Easy was launched, there was some, and it's used in your publicity, some 2.4 million who had real difficulty with reading. And you're inferring that there is this sort of balance between those who would be extremely keen to engage. But many of us are not like that and are more inclined to sit back. How do you win the trust of those who may find it difficult to come forward? And how do you identify those and gain that trust?
Directly, we don't, because so far as a lot of them would see us, they would see us as a school. Oh, right, no, I don't want that. I hated school because I was bullied, I was ashamed, I skived off school. So they would not come directly to us. They will only find us through, I use the word go-betweens. And the go-between might be the mum and the dad. The go-between might be the Citizens Advice Bureau. It might be a teacher at school who notices that. So we have to depend on people coming via somebody that they've trusted enough to say, okay, I'd like to do this.
And let's just look at this other area as well that I was interested by. That is it easier to track down and to work with those who come to Read Easy through? I was reading that there are those who might approach you with ADHD, with brain injuries, and give us an idea, just in terms of those areas, give us a clearer idea there, the sort of individuals who would come to you.
Well, actually, it's really difficult because if you're talking about adults who are over 60 who come to us, and they do, dyslexia hadn't been invented. ADHD hadn't been discovered. So we or they have no idea what it is that stopped them from learning to read, apart from the fact that they sat at the back of the class and were told they were stupid, which you don't get over that in a hurry. So I'm not sure I can answer that in terms of any figures at all. Younger ones, people who come to us can say, yes, I have dyslexia. But dyslexia is not always a reason for not being able to read. It's a reason for reading differently. It's a reason for, if it's a situation where somebody might find it easier to read if they've got a coloured screen across their glasses or across the page, because then they can pick up the words that aren't dancing a jig on the page. It's so varied. Then you've got the people who just spent their time truanting school, and maybe they could have if they had stayed around a bit. It's very difficult to pin that down at all.
So that's part. I mean, there are challenges here, aren't there? Are there other challenges that you face through the work of Read Easy in terms of both reaching out? How closely do you work, for instance, with local authorities, with councils, and in terms of local government? Is there support there?
In terms of government agencies and councils, every time we have approached a local council, they've always been very supportive and helpful and encouraging. They've even afforded us money from time to time to support something that we're doing. However, they're not the people who are going to find the individuals. The individuals have to come through a trusted person, a parent. And for a nice example, we had very early on, we had a very keen lass who came to us. Basically, mum and dad said, this can't go on. She can't go on coming to us with her council tax bills and so on. And the mum had said, I saw this leaflet in, I think it was a cafe, but I can't be sure about that. And it says that they will give, she refers it to grown-ups, they give grown-ups the chance to learn to read, and it's free, and it's one-to-one. Now, that was great because the parents had an instant need to help the daughter, because it can't go on like this. But bigger institutions have other things that they're coping with, which aren't the side issue of this person can't read. So it's tough.
Read Easy, it's free and it's one-to-one. Mm-hmm. So is it, let's just turn to the more sort of, we've talked about a little bit of the broader picture there. Let's let's sort of come. I wasn't going to say down to earth, but let's sort of look at it in a more practical way. Your leaflets are out there. They're out in, as you say, I've seen them in local cafes, in Mere, in Shaftesbury, and in the library and elsewhere, giving that message. But I wanted to come back to how it works practically on the ground. Marion, as one of the coaches, can you perhaps explain to us a little bit about how this actually works? Starting off with, once someone has approached you or you've been introduced to them, what then takes place? How does it operate on the ground?
Okay. Well, first of all, you're introduced to your reader by the coordinator, and she has a pool of coaches who she selects and tries to match as best she can the prospective reader with the prospective coach. And then you meet with her, so the three of you all meet and sort of interact, get to know each other, get comfortable. And then when you start the actual process, you meet in a neutral venue. With my particular lady, we met in a room in a local funeral director's, which was quiet, obviously, and nobody disturbed us. We were left alone with a cup of coffee and we started to chat and all that. But it has to be neutral for everybody's safety. So rather than going to their house, which you don't know what you're going to meet, or them coming to you, so that they can identify you, the risk is that they become too attached to you. So you have to keep it sort of fairly friendly, but not intimate. And you get to know each other and you talk, and then you physically have a set of 5 books, and the books are quite wide, so they're not sort of A4, but they're flexible, and you work your way through these 5 books. They're set out so that you would generally sit on the left-hand side of your reader, and the instructions on how to conduct that day's session are on the left-hand side, and the actual work itself and the way of teaching them the how to read is on the right-hand side. But you both work at it together, and you go right back to basics with the alphabet, because the alphabet has its 2 sessions, 2 different parts of the alphabet. You have the name, and then you have the sound. So you have your A, B, C, but the sounds are A, B, K, D, and you have to get that across. So you wouldn't, for apple it's A, and for boat it's B, which not, it's a different sound to the sound to the name. So, and you gradually build up, and you start really back at basics. You've got a little picture of an apple, and a boat, and a castle, and a queen, and a lamp, and things like that, so that they can identify the picture with the how it sounds. They know what it is, because they're not unable to identify them. But it's to get the association between what they visually see as a picture and the letter that goes with it, and you work through it. The sessions they're meant to last half an hour each, but I always found that they were more. With my particular lady, we started just before COVID, so we had met 3 or 4 times in this neutral place, but then COVID happened and everybody was locked down. So we then discovered that we could both use WhatsApp. So it only meant that we had to get an extra book to her, because I had the book, she had the same book, and we literally had more of an hour session on WhatsApp. We could see each other. So in a way, because when you're sitting side by side to somebody and you're looking at a book, she's not actually seeing you form the sound with your mouth, which is whereas when you're face to face on WhatsApp, you can. And so for us, the WhatsApp worked beautifully through COVID. It fitted both our lifestyles. She had young children, so she was able to, if something happened, we could stop and she could go and deal with the problem and then come back and we'd start again, and we became friends. Not friends that are intimate, but, like very good neighbours. and that sort of thing. And we carried on through all the 5 books. It took 2.5 years because of her circumstances. We only worked during term time, so half terms and holidays we didn't. And in the end, she was awarded her certificate. You get a very good cheer each time you get to the end of one book and you get on to the next book, and but no, it worked very well.
That's such a brilliant story to do with the what could have been a disaster over the COVID element. But you'd met her first.
Met her first.
You'd met the
Yes,
okay,
yeah.
and so you were then able to take that relationship online, and I find that fascinating. That point about suddenly realising that being able to see each other. It takes me back to the learning of. I mean, there's similarities here to when you first set out to learn a language, perhaps when you're studying French or Spanish or whatever it is, and you're at this very elementary level.
You need
and
the shape of the mouth.
Yes. Has that in any way influenced how you might teach person to person now, like an angle of a chair, or or have you continued in the same way?
I think it probably has. Yes, it probably has.
Let's just discuss that. Going back to that point you were making earlier on, so important to do with sound and to do with phonics. How does that work?
Well, it worked particularly well for me because I was taught to read using latter day phonics. I mean, it wasn't called phonics at the time because it's decades ago, But I can remember my mother saying, because you know how parents, what did you learn today at school, dear? And I came back and I rattled off, abacada, effigaha, ijicalam and opqua, and she looked at me as if, where has my child been? Because it meant nothing to her, but I'd learnt the alphabet phonically.
Yes.
So for me, when I came to Read Easy and I learnt that this was how they did it, it was manna from heaven. I could do this, I know this. And people look at me, and even my children look at me and say, what are you on about? But it was
recognition.
Back to when I was 5, I just knew it.
It's very reassuring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Discovered.
And it's the world, it goes round in circles. And it worked for me all those decades ago, and it's coming back.
It's brilliant.
Which was lovely.
Tell me about the books. The books are chosen by Read Easy? Are they now published by Read Easy?
Well,
how has that developed since its founding?
The actual workbooks are very structured in the fact that they introduce different sounds, because you've got anomalies in English, as we all know, silent letters and things like that, and things that sound the same but are not written down the same. So you address that. Things that you think should be an S are in fact a CH or something, or a CK instead of a CH. And so it's very confusing, I think, for anybody who's trying to get their head around things. It deals with it very progressively and very structured. I don't know who wrote the books, but they're brilliant for doing that.
In actual fact, if I may step in here, the Shannon Trust is the organisation that works with prisoners in prisoners.
And your founder was associated with that,
She was linked with them, and the books that we use are the ones that they use in the prisons, so that, for an example, if somebody is released from Nottingham Prison and comes back down to the West Country where home is, and they were on book 3, page 14, then they can carry on from book 3, page 14 with us. But it's the Shannon Trust that's the organisation whose publications we use.
Well, that's really interesting. So that thread has continued from the beginning then, since, so I mean, Read Easy, in terms of your founder, was sort of born out of that.
But we also use books.
What is book?
Well, apart from your structured coursework books, there are extra books that, as they develop, you can introduce what would be a normal little book, and obviously they're graded as to where you are in the set of 5. And when they first start off, they were, again, a bit like you get when you go into the first year at school and the second year and things. So they started with lots of pictures and a little bit of writing, so you can get roughly what's happening from the picture and you can tie it into the reading. And then as you develop through all the different stages and the books, they get less pictures, because that's what my reader was saying. There aren't as many pictures in here as there were. And I said, well, yes, but you're getting better, you know. And it's always important to reinforce how well they're doing, you know, and sometimes you go back a bit and they read it so much easier than they had when they first started it, you know, and the books aren't, you know, they're not dramatic or anything like that, but they do make a progress and they engage with the book, because it's less like work, it's more like a, I don't know, relaxed atmosphere to read a book rather than the workbook. You know.
I have the most vivid memory from and I don't want to think when, but of one of the very early books as a child, and the thing that kept one going is it was a story about pirates, and it started very simply, and it got more and more and more dramatic, and so you felt there was a real impetus for,
yes,
for continuing the story,
yes.
And so these books were similar to that.
Yes, oh yes, there was always I wouldn't say there were a moral to it or anything like that, but there was an outcome, and it related to everyday life. Things that they might experience, going shopping or going on holiday, and the things that they had to prepare to go on holiday and how they enjoyed it, all that sort of thing. So it was, They were related.
Now, Marion, let me ask you this. You're a volunteer and a coach. What makes a good volunteer for Read Easy?
Flexibility.
One word.
Yeah, I think flexibility.
Lydia, what would you say? It can be one word, it could be more than that. That's very good. Flexibility.
Yes, absolutely flexibility. In terms of the team that does the money raising and the awareness raising, it's about working together as a team, and that's really important. It's pulling together and saying, yeah, I can help out with that, and oh yeah, count me in for that, and as much as we can. As you can't, but we're flexible. And we do have a very good team leader who is good at the nudge and the encouragement.
So tell me about where the teams exist, and let's have a bit of a conversation about locality in terms of Mere, Gillingham, Shaftesbury. Take us around the map locally here, because it looks to me as if you fit in very much with where the Literary Festival for Mere throws out its net to this region. Our maps seem to reflect each other's.
Our map is going round clockwise. It's Mere, Shaftesbury, Sturminster, Sherborne, Wincanton, and Gillingham obviously in the middle. We started just Gillingham and Shaftesbury, but we've grown, and we've grown because we've acquired readers from outside what was our original patch, because they've come forward, and that reflects back on what I said earlier about the keen coming forward to start with. This is our patch now, and we really aren't going beyond it because it will become too big to manage.
That's Blackmore Vale North.
That's Blackmore Vale North.
So, let me ask you, in terms of this area and this region, you've got an impressive list throughout this corner of the country, but focusing in on Blackmore Vale North. Do you need more volunteers? What are you looking for? What, through the Mere Literary Festival, what message can we send out?
We need a new coordinator. Our coordinator has recently had to step down. The coordinator, as Marion said, is the person who reaches out to the reader who has come forward, finds a coach who will match, works with the coach and the reader to get them going. We also, right now, we're looking for a fundraiser, somebody who will step up and say, do you know what? I can organise 4 things a year for you, which will be ticketed events of some shape or form, or maybe it could just be a tabletop sale to bring in the money for the group. The treasurer is already somebody who is good at applications for grant funding. So the fundraiser we were looking for right now is somebody who will say, let's raise some awareness, let's get a show on the road, let's bring some money in.
So when you're looking for that fundraising, what specifically are you looking to fund for? What needs the funding within? What needs to be invested in order to build things up?
The books are expensive. They're also, coaches are given the opportunity to claim travel expenses.
And just to really finish, Marion, it's really interesting to learn of the dynamic between, as you say, Lydia's very eloquently made the point that, there are those in Read Easy who are your very own go-betweens in terms of setting up structures. But you, Marion, are at what I was going to call the sharp edge, but actually it doesn't sound like a sharp edge at all. No. It sounds like something extraordinarily rewarding.
It is, it is. I mean, my student came through her child's school. It was the child's teacher who identified that the mother was struggling. So, and the child's teacher, suggested Read Easy, and she got in touch. So in that respect, that's another outlet. It's not just, it was one step removed, and the child was growing up and was learning to read herself. And, mummy doesn't read to me at night, sort of thing. So, and now she does. So it's very, very, very rewarding to see, I suppose, in a way, a sort of light bulb moment in somebody else when they suddenly realise that they can do this. And it's very rewarding.
To conclude, can I ask you, in terms of the Mere Literary Festival and literary festivals overall, really, do you see that as a good way of drawing people in just to hear those stories initially? Can I just ask both of you, starting with Lydia, what role do you think these literary festivals play in interesting and bringing people to them to trigger a genuine interest in reading?
I think from our point of view, the people who will come to a literary festival really enjoy what they read. Therefore, they can be surprised, astonished, or disappointed that there are adults who can't. And therefore, we're appealing to their levels of sympathy. And what we're asking of them, all of the people who come to a literary festival, is, please, if you know anybody, ask them the question and introduce them to us. That's their volunteer role for us.
Marion, just thinking about it perhaps in a different way, those who you're meeting and encouraging, would you encourage them perhaps to come with you to attend an event that might interest them?
I know the joy I get from reading books. I mean, I belong to a book reading group, and through them I've been introduced to different authors that I would perhaps not have chosen myself. And through them, some I've liked, some I've struggled with, and some I've gone on to read more of their own books. So I think to make people aware of what's out there and the joy it can give you, you can't really describe it. It's amazing to sort of find a different avenue that you'd not thought of, and a different genre that you'd not thought of. So I think, yes. So it broadens the mind.
Broadens the mind. Marion, Lydia, what a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And very much look forward to inviting you and you enjoying the Mere Literary Festival in October. Thank you.
Thank you very much.